Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Glad to have this young lady on. Her name is Lunden Roberts. You probably know the name. She, of course, is the mother of the grandchild of the President of the United States. So we'll get to how all that happened in a moment. But it's Lunden Roberts. Lunden, how are you? Good to see you.
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm living the dream. I'm doing great. Out of the Shadows, My Life Inside the Wild World of Hunter Biden is the name of the book. You could pre-order it right now on Amazon. It's out in August. And this had to be something to sit down and write this book. Did you think to yourself, I'm not going to talk about this at all? And then one day you said, maybe I should write a book. How did this come to fruition where you said, let me just let everybody in on what went on here?
Well, it's been a process. I'll say
Yeah.
that. And, a lot of trying to go to therapy, trying to do different things, because this book has a lot of emotions poured into it. I
Yeah.
mean, complete 360 type emotions. And journaling, I felt like, started to help. And so when I started writing, it would help me sometimes get through dark times, like during my pregnancy.
Yes.
And so I thought, you know what, maybe this is how this can make a full circle, and this can be my healing journey. This can, push me forward and get me past everything back there.
Well, good for you. I'm glad that you did it then. If it's therapeutic, that's great. And I hope that you sell 10 million copies. Let me tell you what we were presented about you. And I don't mean any disrespect at anything I'm about to say. But let me just tell you what the public thought you were and who they thought you were. And then, if you don't mind, let's just start correcting the record. Hunter Biden met some stripper somewhere, had a baby with her, wasn't sure it was his, probably wasn't his, and they didn't act like they had any ownership of this child at all until DNA proved it. That's kind of what we know of you. I'm guessing that's dead wrong.
I would say the real story is much more wild than anything the media said.
Really? So there's.
It is. And
Are you telling everything in the book? Let's just tell it all.
well, then no one will buy the book to read it.
No. I don't want you to tell me all. I'm just saying, when you wrote the book, you thought to yourself, let's tell everybody everything.
Yeah, it was a let's tell everyone my journey, what I experienced, what I went through, and you always think that there's a possibility that someone out there can find
Yes.
themselves and relate it to your story. And if it can impact them and help them, then absolutely. I
It's
think
London-
there's a lot through this story that, is unimaginable, and also it could help people. I truly believe that.
and we don't know the half of it, do we?
Nope.
For those who are listening, she's shaking her head no. Out of the Shadows, My Life Inside the Wild World of Hunter Biden. How do you meet the guy?
I actually met him at Rosemont Seneca at an after party.
So that was the company that the money management, sort of publicity management, the company that we all know of, that he's in big trouble over how somehow he ended up on the board of Burisma, all that. How are you at the party? Did you work there?
No. One of my mutual friends was invited from someone that she was interested in. And so she didn't want to go alone because she didn't know him. And so
Yeah.
I actually went with her. And I met him that night.
Do you see him and you say, I'd like to meet him? Does he see you? Do you know who he is? Do you know that he's Joe Biden's son? How does all that come to fruition?
I don't know who he is, but I see, like, I'm going to the bathroom and I talk about it in the book. I give my first hit of Hunter, and I talk about, how I go to the bathroom and most people are out like at after parties, especially in big cities like that, and they're just, partying, living it up. But Hunter's demons kept him in the back, and he was, in this back office. And I stumble across it, and he meets me with, like, a genuine hello and a quick, and it's always, he's engaging. He's very easy to relate to. He's very charming. And that just set it off. I was intrigued. I sat down and I had a conversation with him and talked the entire night.
You can go pre-order her book right now. It's called Out of the Shadows, My Life Inside the Wild World of Hunter Biden. It is Lunden Roberts. So you stumble across him at this party where you were. You didn't know who he was. You didn't know what the connections were. And you're having a conversation. You say a genuine conversation. Because you have to understand, the only thing I know about Hunter Biden is what was on the laptop. And here's a guy whose teeth were rotted, who's doing crack, who's smoking in the bathtub, who's having all sorts of relations with all sorts of women of all ages, maybe even girls of all ages. And then you read his texts and his emails. He's a damaged guy. He's like really damaged that he wasn't like the favorite son and that his father is making him do all this stuff. So when you first meet him, how long does it take until you realize that he's a Biden? Was that pretty quick or not?
It was a few minutes in, and we'll take that from Hunter. Hunter was more broken than people can imagine. And I have this empathy, and I always did. From the moment I met him, I had this empathy for Hunter. And it was obvious he was struggling. He was struggling with addiction. He was in a dark place. And there's so many stories during this time where, a wild ride, all this adventure with Hunter, and it was kind of like the Hunter package. And
yeah,
I know that people who haven't met him or had a conversation with him, they don't see that. They see, what you claim you've seen. But having a conversation with him, people at one point were saying things about Joe because he said one of the most intelligent men, or the most intelligent man he knew, was Hunter Biden.
Yeah, he said that.
And, people see all this stuff on the laptop and they're like, no, that can't be. But despite what he was doing and struggling with, he was still a very intelligent man, as bad as some of the decisions that he's made. And it's out there, for everyone to see. And he's been very candid about his addiction. I give him that. Yeah. But, to sit and talk to him, he's still a very charming man, very intelligent and witty and, humble. And it wasn't until just probably a few minutes into the conversation when I realized, who he actually is. He was our former vice president's son.
Yeah.
And when I asked him and put the connection together, it was a humble but a proud acknowledgement of like, yeah, that's my dad.
That humble is not a word anybody I've ever heard use for Hunter Biden. But when I get more into the story, when I learn more from you, and when we see movies and things that are written about him and that family, you almost get the feeling, and I don't feel bad for him, I'll be honest with you, I don't, but you almost get a feeling that he was a victim in some ways. Did you find him to be a victim in some ways?
I don't find him to be a victim. I feel like, people make bad decisions. Everyone does. And no, I don't see him to be a victim in anything. I mean, he suffered during that time.
The reason that I say victim, it's, again, I don't feel bad for him. I don't like Hunter Biden, so I don't have the empathy that you have. But I say victim because his father is such a dirty, slimy, no good guy, in my opinion. Just from his history, I can talk to you for 3 hours and tell you how bad a guy Joe Biden is. One gets the feeling that Biden ran the Biden family and Hunter was just the guy that had to do what dad said. That's what I mean by victimized. Like, he didn't have his own life. Everything was connected to dad and getting something done for dad. Does that make sense or not?
I could see where you're saying there. I think, and Hunter wanted to make his dad proud. He always wanted, but he felt like, this black sheep and a disappointment to his father. And I think that bothered him a lot.
Yeah. Out of the shadows, my life inside the wild world of Hunter Biden. It is Lunden Roberts. Go and follow her on Instagram. It's LondenTown_, right? Is that what it is?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I just followed you over there, and you didn't follow me back. Whatever, London, whatever. Here we are, just getting to know each other. So you start the relationship with Hunter Biden, and did you think that it was just you and him? Did you think there were other women as well on different coasts? Because we hear about he had women all over the place. Did it feel exclusive to you, or did that not matter at the time?
I talk about being young and wild, rebellious, and I wasn't one of those people that was really looking for a commitment. And I feel like it was, I say this a lot, the Hunter package. Like it just kind of came with him. But, when I received, someone sent me the article the first article that had come out where he was seeing his sister-in-law. And,
right.
I'd seen him prior to, and I was just shocked, but at the same time, it was, he had his way of charming that into being okay. You're okay. And I still saw him after that.
As much as from 30,000 feet up, you would not be okay with it. But when you're in it, you're like, okay, I get it. I still want him around. I still want to be part of his life. So whatever, you just sort of look at it that way.
I would say so. Yeah. I wanted him in my life. I was, I started caring about Hunter deeply around that
Yeah.
time.
It is Lunden Roberts, Out of the Shadows, My Life Inside the Wild World of Hunter Biden is the name of the book. Go and pre-order it right now on Amazon. It's a beautiful page there. Go and click on it and get yourself in line. It's going to sell a lot of copies. At what point do you find out? At what point do you find out that you're pregnant?
I found out months and months later. I found out I'm pregnant. Are you asking about the moment that I'm telling him how
Well,
I
yeah.
found
I mean,
out?
you find out that you're pregnant. Clearly, you're in a relationship with him for a long time, and you approach him with it. I'm pregnant, Hunter. What do we do? I mean, do you just say, "Hey, congratulations, you're going to be a dad again"? How does that go down?
Well, are you a Friends TV show fan?
Yeah, I know Friends. Sure.
Okay. So I always tell people when I describe the situation, it's kind of like when Rachel tells Ross that she's pregnant. And, Ross is just like,
Right.
and she's like, by the way, it's yours, but
Right.
I'll let you process that for a second. Like, I'm gonna give you a second.
Right.
And that's kind of how it went down. And he just like snapped out of it. And he was like, I didn't know it's mine. And I'll be there to support you and emotionally and physically, however that might be. And I'll respect whatever decision you have. He
Right.
was very supportive in that moment.
But just for that moment, because that support went away pretty quickly, didn't it? At least by our view, from as the viewing public, it went away pretty quickly.
Right. It did come away. It did go away quickly. But in the book, I talk about, like we still see each other after he knows I'm pregnant. We still see each other a few more times. In fact, there was an ultrasound that he was supposed to come to that I'd scheduled in Annapolis for him to come and hear the baby's heartbeat for the first time. But he didn't show up.
Right.
And I went by myself and I got to listen to my baby's heartbeat.
Hmm.
And, later on throughout the book, I talk about when he finally does get to hear the heartbeat and his reaction to it. And then it turned into, yeah, like you said, avoidance. And I was on my own. And I get that phone call from my dad, and he says, you can always come home. And that's
Good.
what I did. I came home and I surrounded myself with my family, and it was a very, very dark time for me. And even though you're surrounded by family, you're also very alone. People,
Yeah.
your family isn't just real ecstatic that you are pregnant out of wedlock, and they have all these high expectations for you, and you feel like you've let them down. And
did your family know that did they know that you were dating Hunter Biden?
Yeah, they knew I was seeing him. Yes.
So they knew that it was his right from the beginning.
Yes.
After
Yes,
when
actually, when my dad called, and he had found out I was pregnant for my sister because I was so scared to tell him.
Yeah.
And he called me and he said, well, what did he say? How is he handling it? And I said, I don't know. I don't know, but I don't think it's good. And he said, well, then you come home. You can always come home. And that's what I did.
And since you went home, had you ever spoken to Hunter again since then or not? Was it done at that point?
It was. There was actually a time that he called me while I was pregnant. I was big and pregnant, and he called me one night late at night, and I didn't get to it. And then when I called back, there wasn't an answer, but that was about it at that point.
It's Lunden Roberts, Lunden. Roberts is her last name. Go and get this book or pre-order it right now on Amazon. Out of the Shadows, My Life Inside the Wild World of Hunter Biden. This is Hunter Biden's child's mother. How's your little girl?
Oh, great. She's wonderful.
Does she know who Dad
Can't
is
say
or
enough
not?
good things about her. Do what?
Does she know who Dad is and who Grandpa is?
Yes. Yes, she does. She builds a relationship with Hunter through Zoom calls. And, this recently started over the last year, and, she absolutely adores her father. And for the longest time, she would claim when she gets older, she wants to be a teacher. But
Wow.
now that she's gotten, built this relationship with her father, she says, I want to be a professional artist. I want to be like my father I want to be like Daddy when I grow up. So she adores him.
It's such a weird situation. I bet you never ever planned on something like this. Was there any point
Yeah.
where Hunter said, listen, because my dad's running for president, because of this, that, and the other, I cannot be associated with you? Was there any point where he said, I just can't be any part of this? I know that he is now, and thank God. He should. Your baby should know his or her father. I'm glad that he's involved. I'm glad she wants to be an artist. That's all great. But was there a point where he was like, listen, we can't even talk about this?
No,
Really?
no, he never came out and said that. But I will say, once I moved back to Arkansas and I had this child on my own, and the only communication I had with him was through our attorneys. It wasn't until last year that Hunter and I came face to face and sat down together during his depositions and had a talk. And that was the first talk we've had since I was pregnant with his child.
Is that the first time he's ever seen his child?
He did not see his child that day.
Really?
He was in depositions, so he was there to, answer questions and do that whole legal process. We were going through the child support dispute.
Yeah.
And we were kind of going back and forth, him and my attorney, and he's, asked if we could leave the room and have a private conversation, him and I, and we did. And that was the first private conversation we had since I was pregnant.
And he is supporting her now, right?
He's supporting her now, like he
Monetarily,
her.
is he giving her some money? I mean, he's got to pay. He's the daddy. He's got to pay some money.
Yeah, he pays child support.
Good. Well,
Yes.
I hope that he would. Now, have you heard from the president? Have you heard from the White House directly? Because they're now acknowledging your daughter.
Yeah, they did recently well, I'll say recently, it's probably been a year ago. They acknowledged her and give it a statement. But no, we've not heard from them.
I mean, she should meet the president, no?
She should meet her grandfather.
Yeah.
I don't see why not, right?
No, I mean, it doesn't make any sense not to. And he's flying all around the world all the time anyway. I mean, if he said come to the White House, you would go, would you not?
I would love for my daughter to be loved and accepted by her paternal side of the family.
Hmm. This is such a hard situation. I got to tell you, the whole way you present yourself is so different than I think one would expect, having gone through what you've gone through. I can't wait to read the book because you've already given a couple of hints that we're going to be kind of surprised by how wild it got. But go ahead.
It does. It gets very, very wild. But yeah, and people, I think, misconstrue that now with how I'm able to sit here and talk to you and have a conversation,
right.
And just like. But my emotions in this book pouring in there. There were chapters that I cried reliving, and as I wrote them, and there are chapters that like I think how crazy, like how crazy was that happened.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like kind of one of them situations where like you don't really realize what everything that you've gone through until you have a conversation with someone else, and they're like, that's crazy. Like that is absolutely wild, but it became the norm. But yes, there's some wild stories, there's some crazy stories, and there's a lot of emotion, a lot of different emotions.
Silly question, but did you think he was the one? I mean, have you been to a place in your life where you went, I'm going to meet the one? Did you think he was the one? Possibly?
No, I don't think it was ever me thinking that he's just the one. But when I found out I was pregnant, I wanted him to be the one to step up.
Right.
And not step up and for me, but step up for the child.
Oh yeah.
Our child. And that's what I expected him to be the one to do.
How long was the relationship, if I may ask?
Over a year, on and off.
So it's a good long time. It's a good long relationship. It's not something where you met a few times and you had a baby. I mean, this is somebody who you thought was going to be part of your life. After you learn that he's Hunter Biden, after you learn who dad is, after you learn, because I don't know how close this was to him running for election and winning the presidency, but when you learn all of that, do you think to yourself, whoa, how did I get myself in all of this? Or were you like, this is kind of cool. Everybody knows this family and I'm now with this guy. I mean, how does that resonate with you once you realize the fact that this is a guy running for president, this is a guy that was Obama's vice president, you're with the son. Does all of that pour in, or again, are you so in it that it doesn't really matter, all that ancillary stuff?
it's different because being with Hunter, like Hunter to me was just Hunt. He wasn't like the former vice president's son. He wasn't, someone and I know it's crazy for you to believe this humble side of him, but that's the personal side of him and getting to know him. And even in a dark place, like he found that. There's a story in the book, and it's one of my favorite stories to tell about Hunter.
Right.
And it's like, we're on this train, and there's an elderly lady who wants to know what time it is. It's late. She doesn't have a watch. She doesn't have a cell phone. She's just supposed to meet her family on this one stop when she gets off the train. They're supposed to be there to pick her up. And, Hunter gets to just talking to her like he normally does. And she lets him know that like her nephew, the reason she's on this trip is her nephew is dying. And it was from the same cancer that Bo had passed away from.
Right.
And immediately, Hunter, I knew it. I knew what was going to happen. He gets up out of his seat and he goes and he sits with the lady and he comforts her and, he hugs her and he talks to her. And next thing I know, Hunter is taking this woman to go put her, on her stop to make sure she gets there with her family. And then he's running back to get on the train, to make it. And as soon as he sits down beside me, he pops down and it comes on this loudspeaker. Yeah. And it tells what the next stop is. Well, the next stop is where he was supposed to take her. So he dropped her off on the wrong stop.
Come on.
And I'm just like, well, I start laughing and Hunter's like, what the hell did they just say? And I'm laughing because that's my personality. He gets up, he does everything he can to stop the train. And they're like, no, you can't stop the train. And he's like, I've got to go back and get this woman.
Wow.
And that's exactly what he did. He got off on the next station, went back and got the woman, got them tickets, got them back on the right place, put her on the right place. And, postponed our plans for the entire night because he was all over the place trying to make sure this woman got to where she was supposed to be. That was him during his time battling addiction.
I love the story. I love that he did that. But what's interesting is, and you get this, you're a smart lady. For you, he was this different person. One wonders, why doesn't he act like that in public? He walks around in a very arrogant way, very aloof. He doesn't show any humbleness at all. And if he did, I think that the general public might be willing to understand him better. But all we know of him is, he's selling paintings for $500,000 that aren't worth it. He's part of his dad's scheme. We see all the text messages and the emails. I'm not making them up. They're all right there. And again, we only see these videos and pictures from the laptop. Why doesn't he show? Why do you think he doesn't show that side? Is there some facade that he thinks he has to put on because he's a Biden? If he showed that Hunter Biden, we might understand a little bit better.
I completely understand that. And it's, I've told my attorneys who are, very, very conservative, I've told them before, I was like, listen, I have always said that Hunter has such charm that he can walk into a room full of MAGA supporters.
Yeah.
And by the time he leaves, they may not vote Biden. They might not change his political views, but they'll all like him.
Yeah. Isn't that something?
He has that charm.
And if he has that charm and that ability, again, I don't understand why he doesn't use it. Maybe he's afraid of making dad look bad. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I can't assume what it is. I mean, it could be, drug use. I don't honestly know. And I'm not trying to badger the guy. I think he's in enough trouble as it is. And I love that you're telling your story from your perspective about your life, your child, and yes, the relationship with Hunter. But this is an angle that many people watching and listening to this, Lunden, you realize I'm a conservative guy. I've got a very big audience, and they're going to be yelling at me for giving him the time of day. But this is your experience. And I don't think he could lie to you for a year and convince you for a year if he weren't at least that guy somehow. He must be. He must have some humbleness in him somewhere.
There is. But now, believe me, there are many chapters in this book, whereas like we go to take a DNA test and my attorney's like, do you think you and Hunter could be put in the same room?
Oh, wow.
And at this point, he had denied the child and denied ever knowing me. And I said, I don't think the Secret Service agents would be able to pull me off of him because that's how mad I was.
Yeah.
There are several chapters in here, yes, where I talk about getting to know him and, what made me care about him and that personality. And it's all great, even though there's this chaos and he's struggling with this addiction. But what made me fall for him? And then there's the pregnancy, and then
Yeah.
there's the paternity suit, and there's lots of anger, and there's lots of unacknowledgement, and there's a lot of hurt. There's lots of that poured in here. It's not me defending Hunter and trying to persuade you to like him. That's
Right.
not the case. It's just that's based off my relationship in the first few
Right.
chapters.
Oh, and by the way, I don't like him, so it's not. You're not going to make me like him, but I do like that there's a different facet of the guy that we've all seen publicly, because publicly he looks like an idiot, and publicly he acts like an idiot. And if he had this charm and this niceness about him, he should be smart enough to utilize that to his advantage. The only time we see him speak is he's being very arrogant. He's being very Biden. When you were in this relationship with him, by the way, it's Lunden Roberts, Lunden is her first name. Go and follow her on Instagram. I think it's London Town over on Instagram _ Get the book. It's called Out of the Shadows: My Life Inside the Wild World of Hunter Biden. When he talked about, he was denying you, and he was denying the child. I mean, you mentioned Secret Service. Did he always have Secret Service anyway, even as the vice president's or the former vice president's son? Did he always have protection with him? It's like he couldn't deny it. People had to have known of your existence, no?
No, when after the presidency with Biden and Obama, he didn't have Secret Service or anything at that point.
So he had no personal security or anything?
No.
Interesting. But his friends all saw you at the party. Everybody had to know you were in a relationship with him for a year. How does he deny? I'm guessing you guys ever take selfies or anything? I mean, I don't know how it works when you're in a relationship with Hunter Biden.
I actually did have pictures with him that were erased from my iCloud.
Wow. Wow.
And I talk about that in the book, the story of my two phones. And how the day I find out I'm pregnant, they crash. And what are the odds of that? And that put me in a paranoid state, which, I talk a lot about Hunter's paranoia. And that was something that I inherited from being around him, is that same paranoia. And the day that happened, when I found out I'm pregnant and my phone's crashed, you don't, I've never been a conspiracy theorist, but you wonder, why did that happen? And was somebody protecting him?
Did you fear for your safety?
Do what?
Did you fear for your safety?
That's what I'm saying. If somebody will do that, if somebody's doing that to protect him, how far will they go to protect him?
Scary. When you were with him, was he still actively doing drugs?
Yeah, on and off, yes. Because here's the thing with Hunter, an addict, and one of their main qualities and traits is, they come and they go. And that's why I tell people, over a year on and off, because there would be times where he would go missing for, 2 to 3 weeks. And then he'd pop right back up again.
His son's on some drunken stupor bender, perhaps.
There's no telling.
And he would just show up. Hi, London, I'm back. Hi, how are you? It's so odd. And again, I don't feel bad for the guy, because I think he's an adult. He's almost my age. He's in his late 40s or something. And I know I look like I'm 30, but I'm 57. So looking at him, he's got a life where he could have achieved everything. He's got a life of privilege. He's got a life, with a daughter with somebody who looks and is as intelligent as you. Yet for some reason, it sounds like he always shot himself in the foot right when something good was going to happen. I just get that feeling.
Actually, me and one of my mutual friends, with Hunter, we joke, and in the book we put jokes like that in there, every now and then, where it's like, he is the most self-loathing and self-sabotaging person that we've ever met. Hunter, tries to be there forever, or I wouldn't say tries to be there, but he would be humble to people and be kind to people, but he treated himself worse than anyone.
It's so weird. It really is, because he could have been completely a different guy. It's Lunden Roberts. Get this book, Out of the Shadows: My Life Inside the Wild World of Hunter Biden. You've given me a ton of time. You'll notice that I didn't ask you for a bunch of anecdotes from the book, because I want people to go and buy the book. I wanted them to just get to know you a little bit. At this point, your relationship with Hunter are you co-parenting? Is he somebody who, does he call your daughter every day, a couple of times a week? How does that work? I'll finish with that. What's the daddy role for him in your daughter's life right now?
Yeah, we actually are co-parenting. He is building a relationship with her through Zoom. And, another little insider on something you don't see on the news, but like I say, for her first T-ball game this year, he wanted to, talk to her before a game.
Great.
And she's like this little tiny thing, little petite thing. And she's always the one that's like all Nike'd out on the T-ball field. She wears her hat on backwards and, she thinks she's Navy Jeter is what I call her.
Nice.
But, he wants to Zoom her before the game, and he gets on there and he's getting ready for the prep talk, and he sees she's ready. She's got her uniform on, she's got her hat on backwards, and she's just sitting there waiting on him to come.
That's something.
And as soon as he turns on Zoom call, he flips his hat on backwards to give her the pep talk, and have that conversation with her. And
good.
They're building a relationship through Zoom, and just the look on her face and the happiness that she endures every time she sees him or knows that she's going to talk to him.
That's cool.
That makes it worth it. And I have to have that forgiveness in my heart, right?
Oh, no, forgiving him is great. I don't think he's a good guy. I'll never think he's a good guy, but he should try his best to be a good dad. And it sounds like he's actually putting the effort forth, which is good. You deserve that. Your daughter deserves that. Is her last name Biden, by the way?
I'm sorry, what?
Is her last name Biden?
No, her last name is Roberts.
Oh, well, God bless you. It is Lunden Roberts. That's the mama, Lunden. Roberts is her last name. Follow her over on Instagram. Get the book. Go pre-order it now. Out of the Shadows, My Life Inside the Wild World of Hunter Biden. Lunden, can we do it again? I'm glad you stayed longer. We'll make 2 segments out of this. I really appreciate you taking the time. Sure. Love to talk to you right before the book comes out again, if that's okay.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. We're back after this. Stay right here.